Welcome to The Holistic Nurse with your host, Peggy Smith. Peggy will introduce and educate her viewers about the differences between alternative, holistic, and complementary medical therapies. Her goal is to empower the lay medical consumer to learn how to advocate for themselves. So now, please welcome the host of The Holistic Nurse, Peggy Smith.
I welcome everybody to this week's edition of The Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. Today we're going to start preparing for the hectic holiday season by just taking a moment to step back and remind ourselves that in the midst of all the chaos, we don't have to get sucked into it. There's a phrase that was very popular in the middle 90s, wherever you go, there you are. Jon Kabot-Zinn, that was the title of his book in 1994. But the phrase did not originate with him. It goes all the way back to actually Confucius and some of the Eastern religions. It's basically you can't escape yourself. Sometimes we're not happy in a job. We think the grass is greener somewhere else. The grass is never greener. And the one common denominator is that you're going to be there in the new location too. So got to make sure that you're balanced and ready and know what you're looking for. But the phrase basically is telling us about mindfulness. It's teaching us to just step back and slow down and evaluate objectively whatever it is you're trying to escape. And escaping usually doesn't work. The external stresses that we all deal with every day, if we take a moment and actually calm down and breathe and look at it, we might realize that it's actually not as bad. But basically, the phrase means that you have to turn and look at yourself because wherever you go, there you are, and you're going to bring the same problems and stresses and challenges. And changing location, it usually doesn't make it go away. Instead of running away, we have to learn how to just radical self-acceptance in a non-judgmental way. And that's basically the precept of mindfulness, which has come up many times on our shows and some of our peers that are teaching the same principles. Acceptance is an invitation to just accept your life and your thoughts and your feelings, whatever they are at that moment, and understand without judging that it's a reason that you have those feelings right now, whether it's a conglomeration of everything in your past or some events that happened recently. Maybe if you get to work late and you're punching a clock, you're upset, you spilled your coffee trying to rush. It's you just have to have to keep your sense of humor. That's always helped me. But the only moment when you shift your focus away from worrying about the past and anxiously worrying about the future, then you realize that if you're mindfully present, that's really the only moment you have to work. Here in our country, many of our states had elections yesterday that were pretty important. But when it comes right down to it, whether you were on the winning or losing sides from your perspective, your life hasn't changed, basically. You're still the same person. You still have to pay the same bills, get up, go to work, or do whatever you do, go to school. And so you don't need to waste a lot of energy for imaginary things that you have no control over. So instead of always feeling like, well, when I get that better job, my life will be different. Or, when I break up with this relationship, the next relationship, will be the perfect person. And you've got to learn to define realistic expectations. And uh, you're not able to do that unless you can slow down and breathe and just experience the present moment and take in everything that's happening in the present moment. So when we begin, we're just going to be quiet for about 60 seconds, and then we're going to get ready to practice a short breathing exercise just to show you how easy it is to calm down. So if you're sitting in a chair or someplace comfortable, feel your feet on the floor and the weight of your body in your chair, and just be quiet for a few seconds. And we're going to begin by looking at our breath, because breathing is the basic anchor to the present moment. It's always with you. Wherever you go, you have the ability to control your breathing. And so we're going to inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. And then you're going to hold your breath for a count of 7. And then exhale, almost making a swoosh sound through your mouth for a count of 8. It does take a little practice, but if you remember, there's the count of 4 for breathing in, hold it for 7, and then let go for 8. 4, 7, 8 is what you want to remember, and it gives you a foundation to start looking more objectively at what's around you. When we talk about being balanced holistically, there's basically 4 pillars that we're talking about, and sometimes it's enough to balance one pillar. You have to kind of learn which pillar is your most important pillar that needs to be balanced. Those 4 pillars are the physical realm, the mental realm, the emotional, and the spiritual. All of those together comprise ourselves, our being. So when you actually practice, when you learn to identify what pillar is in need at that any given moment, um, you realize that there's a lot of things you can do to balance. If it's your physical realm, obviously breathing is physical, so you're going to start, getting in touch with that. Breathing amazingly also helps the emotional realm. Um, the actual spiritual well-being, sometimes that's based in uh, lessons we've learned in our past, our backgrounds, or choices we've made as adults to practice. And spiritual does not always mean a traditional church or religion. It just means kind of being one with the universe, because we all have that in common, regardless of what political persuasions we have or religions that we practice. And your goal ultimately is to learn how to practice these skills, because practice does make perfect, or maybe not perfect, but get you closer to your goals. And there's a lot of 5-minute quick things you can do to get in touch with yourself. What you actually realize as you're learning these skills, that then a lot of the things that you've been upset about and stressing over are really not. I don't want to say it's not worth stressing over, but it doesn't have the same importance. Um, there are things that when you're in your 20s or even teens or younger, you get so excited, so stressed. Life is going to, the end of the world is coming sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And when you get to the other end of the spectrum, on the life continuum, you realize, gosh, I wasted so much energy back when I was 20 worrying about foolish things, but they weren't foolish when you were 20. Um, so your goal is to just learn how to increase your mindfulness skills, identify which pillars at any given moment. And it's rare that all 4 pillars are crashing at once. It's not impossible. Uh, it might feel like they're all 4 crashing at once when you don't take time to actually objectively look at your situation. Uh, but we're going to talk about some skills and practices that you can incorporate that don't take classes, don't take more than a couple minutes. Some can be done in your car when you're stuck in traffic. Maybe you just take a quick break at work and get some fresh air. There's a lot of really micro skills that you can learn. And that's what I'm going to be showing you today. Um, One of the first things, because eating is such an important part of our physical being and our emotional being, almost everybody on some level has emotional eating habits. Some of us have, emotional connections to food more than others do. Um, if you grew up in a very structured home back in the time when I was growing up, sometimes parents had the phrase, eat it or wear it. And that applied to those vegetables and things you never wanted to eat. Um, so you might not have a real positive feeling about food. If you spend a lot of time with a grandmom who's always baking cookies and the kitchen smells great, food is comfort. And, it's a lot of times it's not really the food that we're aiming for. We're just reaching out and yearning for that comfort feeling that we had in those different stages of our life. But for mindful eating, if you can just take, say, a raisin or a nut, and I say nut qualified, a lot of people do have nut allergies nowadays, or just a small piece of food, maybe even a little slice of an orange or a piece of watermelon, anything that's small piece of food. And as you put it in your mouth, take a moment to notice its texture, see if it has any smell, if it's a nice smell. Notice the temperature in case it's something hot before you put it in your mouth, and then chew slowly. And when you're chewing, just focus on the flavor. Is it tart? Is it sweet? Uh, does it remind you of something else? It's just you're just going to focus on the flavor as you're chewing. And a lot of times, this break we all the time we eat so fast that we're not even paying attention. The plate's empty, and all of a sudden dinner's over, and nobody's even talked to each other, and you can't even remember what you ate or what it tasted when you were done. Um, Chewing is the very first step of physical digestion. So if you kind of inhale your food, then you're cheating yourself out of an important part of the digestion process. And what actually happens in that, you often end up missing some of the nutrients that are important as far as just supplying your body with the nutrients it needs. Then there's micro movement is another practice that you can learn how to do, and it truly is just 2 minutes. Um, you practice by standing for 2 minutes and kind of do a mindful stretch or a chair yoga type of exercise. As you move your arms, be aware of the sensation in your joints. If you haven't been moving very much, you might hear your joints crack. And, keep your sense of humor. Um, that's a sign you're not moving enough. But just let the movements be almost like hugging yourself, just enveloping yourself with self love, and um, just honor your body by keeping it exercising and keeping it moving. Um, In our next section, we're going to talk about gratitude and digital boundaries uh, and the 1% rule. So we'll be right back in just a moment.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Off
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Holistic Nurse. We're talking today about the theme, wherever you are, there you go, and how you learn to, first of all, discover where you are and then accept yourself and love yourself for being there. And part of being healthy in a holistic way is learning to set boundaries. A lot of times our relationships seem to be extra stressed or even unsuccessful because we don't set personal boundaries for ourselves. But the foundation of boundaries actually is learning to set boundaries for yourself, to yourself, your own behaviors that don't involve anybody else. We live in such a digital, fast-paced, constantly, being bombarded with, flashes, news alerts on your phone. You don't really need to know every 30 seconds, what somebody's eating for dinner and what the latest news flash is. If a celebrity passes away, I mean, they're, with no disrespect, somebody's going to be just as gone as if you didn't know about it for an hour or so. And it doesn't usually affect your own personal life. Digital boundaries, though, there's a strategy called the 30-10 rule. When you first wake up in the morning, and I'm guilty of it too. If I wake up during the night just to go to the restroom, very often, first thing I do as I'm walking to the restroom is checking for messages or updates of something that happened between when I went to bed and when I had to go to the bathroom. I've never seen anything that I needed to react to during that time period, and it helps you, prevents you from having good restful sleep. So it's recommended that you wait 30 minutes after you wake up in the morning before you check your phone. It's probably a good idea unless you're on call for a professional reason or you've got family people you need to reach if they had a problem in the middle of the night, to actually charge your phone and have it in another room so you're not getting the notifications, or at best turn off your notifications when you go to sleep. And it's recommended that you should put all your screens away at least 10 minutes before you go to bed. That's probably a compromise because for years now, Harvard Medical School has been recommending that you turn off all electronics an entire hour before you go to bed. And that includes actually your television, your phones, your iPads, everything. Because with the blue light reaction and radiation and everything, your mind just never shuts down completely. So you get a complete deep REM sleep that you need to stay healthy. So if you can at least put the screens away 10 minutes before you go to bed, it helps have you wake up a little more refreshed and avoid, just even looking at your phones during the night. The other practice, which is easy to do and it makes such a big difference, is gratitude practice. Marty Seligman is a University of Pennsylvania professor. At the time, he wrote a book called Authentic Happiness. And basically, the book was how to be truly happy in your life. And the key premise in his book was that if you can identify 3 to 5 things every day that you can be grateful about, then you realize your life is not hopeless. It's not as bad as you thought it was. And they can be small things. If you can wake up and start your day, Maybe you're waking up, you're going to have an awful meeting at work. And so you're not thinking about being grateful that you actually have a job to go to. There are a lot of people that would like to have a job and go to that awful meeting that you're dreading. Little things like that. If you uh, wake up and you're able to have breakfast before you go to, work, just minor things. And I've had some elderly patients tell me over the years, as they wake up, they feel their arms and legs and they say, Gosh, I woke up on the right side of the dirt. It's a good day. I'm grateful. Um, so your perspective changes, you can, uh, and life is a series of learning experiences. So if things are going a little bit rough and you can reframe your thinking to accept what's going on as a learning experience, and instead of being angry about it, okay, what do I need to learn here so I can move on? That's another way of reframing but gratitude practice really does, especially for people that are dealing with mental health issues and not able maybe to get as intensive care as they need. um, if you can just, like they say, take time to smell the flowers. I watch my dogs when I take them for a walk, and darn if they don't have to smell every flower, every blade of grass, every telephone pole that 100 dogs have peed on before. But it makes me laugh because they take time to smell the flowers and the pee, and it's all part of life. So we can learn from the animals. And they're not stressed out if it was a dog they didn't like. They just go and, they say you should handle problems in life like a dog does. If you can't do anything about it, then just lift your leg and pee on it. Well, that not literally, please. But in order to, and we all have a problem with consistency. That's just part of being human. So if you can take these simple skills that I'm suggesting, and there's a 1% rule that shows you how you can integrate it in your life without a lot of stressful effort. I'm not asking you to, subscribe to programs, do anything that you probably aren't already doing, but balance is in your life is not about being perfect. It's just about consistent, small, intentional changes. If something doesn't work, then look at it objectively in your mindfulness practice and say, okay, how else can I, approach this situation? Um, but if you can get 1% better each day, uh, even that 1% makes such a big difference because you actually realize that, first of all, it's empowering. You did it yourself. And, uh, you know, 1% is a big deal if you're just consistently in the negative. And many of us do run emotionally in the negative. Um, it's journaling is always a good way of measuring your progress. Not everybody likes to write, and the one thing about smartphones and tablets is that you can just hit the microphone button and record what might have been considered a journal entry back in the day when we didn't have access to smartphones. The whole purpose is not even to go back and read it, although sometimes if you're really hitting a low point and you can go back and say, well, gosh, a month ago it wasn't so bad, and this is what I did to make it better. You can learn from your past and plan your future more realistically. Um, but you could also have journaling prompts to remind you, like today, I'm going to see if I can do that 4-7-8 breathing. Uh, at least 10 times today to see if it makes a difference and how I feel when I'm done breathing with that exercise. Or you may find another exercise, or if you're athletically, and your goal is to just first walk around the block a few times a day and then maybe jog, and you can measure your progress, and it does make a difference. um, the holidays are coming up, and many of us already are anticipating, oh, I'm always depressed. I hate the holidays. I hate being around my family. We're going to argue at the dinner and everything else. Well, you can plan to be miserable, or you can just take it one day, 1 minute at a time, and realize, the people that you maybe don't want to be around. There's always, all of us have empty chairs at our holiday tables. Um, COVID accelerated that. We realized, we lost a lot of relatives during that period. And it helps you appreciate who you are, the fact that you're still here, another reason to be grateful. And, your family, if you're tending to talk about sports teams that you're, not on the same side of the field for, or the politics, a lot of families agree we're just going to have a nice turkey dinner. We're not going to talk about politics, uh, or anything, and uh, I talked before in the past about how you guys sometimes you're missing Aunt Mary's apple pie and somebody tries to recreate the recipe. It's actually, you find out, not the pie at all. It's the camaraderie and the relationship and being with family or people you care about. Not everybody has, relatives, natural family, but family are the people that you feel comfortable with, and sometimes it's a really good friend. I grew up in a military family, and my parents always on the holidays would invite two or three soldiers that were stuck on the base for the holidays and invite them into our home for the holiday dinner, because and you can do something like that, or maybe you could spend an hour of your day going to a shelter and packing lunches and helping serve food to people that are unhoused. uh, there's a lot of ways that are inexpensive and don't even take a lot of time that can really increase um, the importance and the emotional connection to people. And our digital world, especially when we're working from home, even our meetings, our Zoom meetings, or actually Zoom meetings, we don't connect with people the way we used to, and that really is. When they have animals that don't have connection, they failure to thrive. Uh, Used to be in the institutions, children that were handicapped and were put away for life, because medical science didn't understand there were better ways to do it. People didn't live as old as they do now, but human connection can make even a very complicated, physically ill person just thrive and excel and do so much better with life. And nobody's perfect, but gratitude plays a really big role in making your life work better. Um, so those are important keys that I wanted to bring out. I will also say, obviously, there are people that are really struggling. If you have family members that are alone and homebound and tend to be looking on the dark side and feeling hopeless, uh, reach out and include them. If you have an elderly neighbor that has nobody left, instead of them having a can of Campbell's soup, which is very common for senior citizens, especially now with some of the challenges with our government funding right now. Uh, Bring over a plate at least if somebody's not willing to come join you. It makes a difference that they really appreciate that somebody thought of them. Um, Same thing goes in the summertime. If you live in an area that's very hot, check on the elderly people, the people that are alone. Um, we're being mindful helps us make us more aware of our surroundings. It makes us more safety minded. A lot of times we just walk through, we don't even realize when we're in danger because we're looking at our phone. When I'm at a red light in the city, I can see everybody, nobody's looking, and they're just except at their phone. They're not looking where they're going. So you need to plan to have a successful holiday season, and you need to practice mindfulness skills. So we'll be right back, and we'll kind of summarize everything and talk about just different things that you can do to make your life a little bit calmer this season.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, we're back with the Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith, and we're talking about wherever you go, there you are. And how we can prepare for the holidays, for New Year's resolutions. The holidays are actually the time of year that most personal relationships break up. There's a lot of different theories with that, but I think one of the biggest reasons relationships don't work out is because we have unrealistic, expectations. And if you're looking for certain characteristics in a partner or a friend, you might want to step back and see if those are characteristics that you really are looking for in yourself, and you're not going to find them in somebody else. You need to cultivate them in yourself. But by just being grateful that you're even on the right side of the dirt, as my former patient George used to say, there's just so much that you can learn to appreciate. And we've talked in previous shows about reframing negative thoughts and challenging situations. If you really hate your job, but obviously you've got bills to pay, you can be looking like everybody looks. I think no matter what your job is, how good it is, we always keep our eye open for, that imaginary better position. But if you can just focus on, I'm grateful that I have a paycheck, that I can pay my bills. It's very challenging if you have a serious medical problem. You're not feeling very grateful to the universe or anybody else that you're dealing with this problem. And, we get so much digital input and stimulation that we often hear more negative things, possibilities for serious medical problems. But if you know that you've got the best doctor that you can have, and you've got just a lot of confidence in your doctor and faith that that you can overcome this, the whole treatment process will go better. You can be grateful that back in my mother had gone blind with glaucoma for the last 10 years of her life. She lived in an area of the country where people up here in the Northeast, they don't usually go blind from glaucoma because we have the latest treatments, special eye drops, things like that. She didn't have access to that in the part of the country that she was living in. So it was just, okay, I'm old, I'm going to go blind. There's always resources out there. Hospitals often have what they call a nurse navigator, a team that helps you find the best situation for your problem. If you've got health insurance challenges, don't assume that you're just, going to lose the battle because you don't have a good enough insurance. There are resources out there. Many of the newest and best drugs, pharmaceutical companies realize that, unless you're a billionaire, you can't really afford it on an ongoing basis. almost every major pharmaceutical company and every latest and best drug for whatever the problem is has copay assistance, which sometimes is 100% of the assistance. So don't turn down options. Always ask. If you're in a medical situation, is there copay assistance, and how do I reach the pharmaceutical company? And if your doctors and medical team aren't sharing that, you can actually get the information on the drug that you're considering and contact the pharmaceutical company yourself. They all have a department just for that purpose of helping people, because um, in order for them to stay in business, they need to have lots of case studies that show their drug is successful. They want people to be healthy and use more of their drugs. I mean, there's a practical point of view here, and so they do make options available. Um, if you've had to change your insurance this year because many of the insurance companies um, are not operating in certain areas of the country, or the type of insurance that you had, uh, it doesn't mean that you go without insurance. If you're already a patient in the hospital, the social workers there, that discharge department, they're not going to let you go home knowing they're not going to get paid. They have means of getting emergency coverage for hospitalizations. They have access to the connections that you need. If you need to go home on IV antibiotics, which maybe 20 years ago you would have had to stay in the hospital another 3 weeks, the infusion companies have options to be able to cover that, so that you're uh, not able to get the care that you deserve and you need. Um, there's, when you sit back and actually discover what you need in a particular situation, and there's a difference between what you want and what you need, obviously. But if you're able to realistically talk to your body, ask inside, what would make you feel better. Don't avoid the doctor if you're not feeling well because you're afraid of the worst. Because the universe doesn't hear "I'm afraid," they hear the worst, and the universe has a way of giving us what you're asking for, even though you don't realize you're asking for it. Um, you have so much power, and uh, and you just have to learn to trust your stuff, follow your gut. We've talked about, listening to your gut as is the baseline compass for you. Just because your neighbor lost, 100 pounds on this newest and latest drug, you don't know their entire medical history. It may be that your kidneys and liver can't tolerate that drug, but there are other options for you to lose weight and stay healthy. Um, so, and I caution everybody, don't pay attention to the pharmaceutical ads that are on TV. Um, your doctor gets the information from the pharmaceutical companies. These commercials that say, ask your doctor if your heart is healthy enough for this, or ask your doctor if you should have this. Um, Obviously, they want to sell their drugs, but it's not our job as patients to say, hey, doc, did you hear about that drug on Channel 3? What do you think of it? If, that's not how we practice medicine, how we should be practicing medicine. But you always have options, and listening to what your neighbor did in the same situation is not usually the best way to handle your issues. Um, there is no shame if you're dealing with psychological stress and mental health problems, because that's often one of the first areas in healthcare that uh, does get shortchanged, but there still are options available. Um, if you've lost a family member and it's been 2 years, and your family's telling you get over it, if it seems like you're having a harder time longer than what society would accept to be normal, and there is no normal for grieving. I want to bring that up. Holidays are a time that you really miss some of the people that are no longer with you, the ones that you were very close to, your spouses or children. Um, you're not defective. Sometimes it helps to talk to a professional, whether it's mental health or pastor, a really good friend that can, just be supportive. Um, but you're not defective if you're struggling, and there is help out there. Um, and again, I want to remind people, if you're really struggling with ideas of self-harm and suicidality. The 988 emergency number is not just for people that are ready to jump off the bridge. It's also to put you in connection with resources that are locally in your area. And they ask you questions like, what is your insurance status and things, because they can find the resources that can help you. um, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer than it should, but at least you're in touch with somebody, the process has started, and help is out there. um, but at the same time, give yourself credit for what you're capable of doing. We human beings are resilient, or we would have been extinct with the dinosaurs. And if we're not careful with our earth and our resources, we might be someday extinct with the dinosaurs. But we can all only do what we can do for ourselves on an individual basis. If you respect yourself, you tend to respect life more, and more realistically, you tend to uh, just respect other people. Because a lot of times, when we're treating somebody else with a disparaging attitude, if you can step back and look, we realize that it's really ourselves that we're seeing ourselves in somebody and projecting it, and your perceptions are just kind of faulty thinking, and there's ways of retraining your brain to look at things realistically. Life is not always perfect. It's, I guess, as I'm not good at movies, but life is like a box of chocolate. He's one of my favorite actors. Um, a lot of times in healthcare, at least, patients often give us chocolate around the holidays, and it's great. We appreciate it, even though, you know, but sometimes people will stick their finger in the bottom of the chocolate to see what it is first. And okay, if that's your habit, that's fine, but don't put the chocolate back in the box in the slot if you're not going to eat it. Please get rid of it. And you can kind of use that example as life. Something we don't like, we kind of project it on somebody else or make excuses. Um, and sometimes there are people that are just not healthy for us to be around, and even if they're family, just because they're family, if you're being abused and um, just totally disrespected and treated in unhealthy ways, you deserve better, and you don't have to put up with that. Um, there are a lot of resources out there. It's more acceptable now to talk about domestic abuse. Um, and domestic abuse is something that is both ways. Women can abuse men. Um, Everybody assumes it's the man that's the bully. That's not always the case. We're all human, and sometimes you need a professional to help you get back on track. And one of my favorite phrases is, "If we could all act like animals, this world would be perfect." I learned so much about human behavior watching how my animals interact with each other. Um, and I say that tongue in cheek, but it's really true. I'm very blessed to have special needs animals that actually see life as it is, and it makes me laugh a lot because um, I even have a parrot sometimes. If I'm frustrated about something, and the African gray will say, "Honey, are you okay?" He's not mimicking anything. He actually knows my mood and responds to that. Um, Sometimes we don't want to ask somebody if they're okay because we don't want to get into it. Um, but just letting them know, "Hi, I recognize that you're here," is enough. You don't have to get into the whole story. We're going to take our last break and just remind a few basic principles and wish everybody a good holiday season. We'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach Jon M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. Jon M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Welcome back, everybody, as we're talking about mindfulness, and wherever you go, there you are. It basically comes down to learning to radically accept yourself. And instead of running away from your internal state, which might be anxiety, it might be a bad mood, if your feelings are not pleasant feelings, if you can look at what's going on inside first without judgment. And if you're stressed, and it's okay. Stress is part of life. Stress is there's some things we can't control. We can't control what other people do or say. We might not be able to control some of our health situations, but there are certainly things that we can do to control the symptoms that go along with those health situations that can really make a big difference in our quality of life. So acceptance means learn how to accept your life, your thoughts, and your feelings exactly as they are at any given moment. And you're not a statue. You change. Your life is fluid, and you have to kind of go with the flow. And I had a lot of kids on Ritalin, as a parent, and so we learned how to go with the flow. Life was always an experience, a new journey. And you need to be open to opportunities and open to just situations around you, because you never know how even a simple smile to a stranger can make a difference. Maybe you're at the convenience store and you hold the door open for somebody, and yes, there's still a lot of people that don't hold the doors open for people. I remember seeing a woman was coming out with her 6 or 7-year-old son, and she actually instructed him, now you hold the door until everybody's gone through, and this is what a gentleman does. And I actually, smiled, and I complimented him on his manners, and I thanked the parent for, trying to raise a child in this crazy world with the proper skills and manners that, we kind of forget sometimes as we rush around. But if you can accept whatever's going on with you at any moment, and including the things that you don't like, you're going to be more open to accepting ways to change and make your life better. It only takes a moment to take your focus away from worrying about the past or the present. Sometimes you don't even realize that you're reacting to something that happened 20 years ago, and you don't understand why it would be affecting your behavior in the current moment. But maybe a manager on the job, says something disparaging to you, not very professional, that, demeans you in some way, or even corrects you in front of other staff members, things like that. You have to understand that a lot of times what you're reacting to is actually somebody else's problem. But by taking just that 30, 60 seconds to check inside and say, okay, is this a valid perception on her part? And, if it's not, you're not going to join the the fray and react as out of control as the other person is, but perhaps you can at a later time in a quieter moment alone say, I just want to clear up a possible misunderstanding. Maybe you don't realize that this is what I've been doing, and you might not have noticed that. Stand up for yourself, because if you don't stand up for yourself, nobody's going to. And a lot of managers on the job actually are shocked when somebody stands up for themselves. But if you do it in a respectful way, and 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 if you're being corrected, or another way, orally disciplined or something at work, and it's something that is valid, look at it, and you can actually accept it by thanking them for pointing it out to you. You didn't realize that this is how it was affecting the whole group or something, and you're going to try to handle things differently next time. But when you change jobs, a lot of people, New Year's, they try to start their life over. They're going to get a new job, new partner, new all these other things. As long as you're the common factor there in all those new situations, life's not going to be any different. It's highly unlikely. So this holiday season, just remember to be mindful, to learn to love yourself, respect everybody that's around. If you're going to a family dinner, maybe agree ahead of time to leave the phones in the car, or at least until after when you're watching the football games. And just try to enjoy the holidays. Not everybody celebrates holidays. Be respectful of that. But everybody celebrates humanity. And if you can treat everybody the way you would like to truly be treated, you'll start the new year off a lot healthier. So thanks for joining me today on The Holistic Nurse, and we'll see you next week. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you.
This has been The Holistic Nurse with host Peggy Smith. Tune in each week, where you're encouraged to send in questions and receive private responses and suggestions if appropriate. Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern,